everyone, and welcome back to another week here at the Damage Report. It's a Monday, and Mondays are traditionally always very fun here, but I think this one is gonna be particularly good. But let's get it started off with the return of Francesca Fiorentini. Francesca, how's it going?
Salud, Dragon Squad. Happy continued endless birthday, John Iadarola. I'm sad I missed it.
There needs to be like at least a 2-week period where it's not my birthday, especially because within less than 1 week, it's my wife's birthday. So let's make it about her for at least a couple days. Sure. I think that's fair. That's
then
a
back
fair
to
distribution. And then right back to me. But anyway, welcome back. I hear that you had a really gross episode of TBR.
Gross? Oh no,
that was pitched it.
Oh yes, no. So we're doing a top 10 later on, John, for all the subscribers of the Damage Report. I'll announce that, and we're talking about Mr. Lou Dobbs. And for a Newsbroke video, which there's a new Newsbroke out, all about how to actually stop white supremacist and extremist violence, i.e. don't do another war on terror. But we talked about Lou Dobbs. So I think the reference you're saying is, I was telling you about some what we called him, and we can tell all the subscribers exactly what we called him, because it was pretty visceral and disgusting.
Yeah, and look, if Francesca's calling it disgusting, based on our experience with her over the past few months, you know it's an issue.
How dare you?
But anyway, that sounds good. Okay, so look, we got a lot of news. We're gonna have a little bit of updates on the Senate trial, which I guess is happening soon. What's gonna happen with the COVID relief bill? We had some good news last week about that, so let's balance out the scales of the universe. A little bit of good news, bad news on COVID. It's a good news, bad news sort of day. And why wasn't Trump ever on Parler? It's an interesting question with a really corrupt answer, or potentially corrupt answer, coming up a little bit later on. But for those of you who are already watching, thank you for being here. Please hit the like button and share the stream if you haven't already. And if you'd like to engage with the chat over on Twitch, with drawings of me shaped like a penis, or on YouTube, we can all have a lot of fun. You can send in messages, we'll respond as we go. And then after we're done, we're gonna do that top 10 list. So if you'd like to get access to that, it's available every week, as well as the back catalog, the ever-growing back catalog of top 10 lists for our level 2 and level 3 subscribers or members over on YouTube. So that's all there for you. And with that, why don't we jump into this news? Donald Trump is the first president in history to be impeached twice, which means that it's the first time that you've been ever been able to sort of like learn lessons from the first one and apply them to the second one. Most presidents capped out at the first, so there was really no time for growth there. But apparently the Democrats do have some lessons. So what have they learned? Well, Democrats apparently complained that the first one was repetitive and sometimes sanctimonious, although it is the impeachment of the president. So if something was going to be, it seems like it'd be that. And now the prosecutors managing a second are prepared to conclude in as little as a week, forgo distracting witness fights, and rely heavily on video, according to 6 different people working on the case. So pretty much everyone on the Democrat and Republican side wants this to be short, apparently. They all seem to agree on no witnesses, which seems really weird, Francesca. And we're gonna have a bunch of video, which we know the Republicans don't want. So this sort of first view of the strategy, what do you think?
I think, I just think it's funny that we're chalking up the reason that there was not a conviction in the Senate in the first impeachment to it was a little too long. I feel like Republicans, they just couldn't focus. No, they're a party of shook, cowardly loyalists. They are lemmings. They are and which is why we're in this moment where all of their complicity and their loyalism has led to this second impeachment that's actually put the lives of, not regular citizens. No. That's been long been the case. No, of representatives and senators themselves. So now you see what happens when there are no consequences for your previous actions. So it is. Now, do I think that means that more Republicans are gonna vote to impeach and convict? No, but I just think it's funny that there's stupid hand wringing about what didn't work the last time, as if that was any part of any of it. It was complicated. No, it wasn't. You just called up another country and was dig up dirt on my opponent. Bye.
Yeah, it's a great point. Because this article, like we don't have a bunch more from this particular article, but one thing they said was, we want to make sure that we don't drag it out because then Republican senators could get bored or distracted. First of all, that's the saddest thing imaginable that that's actually consideration, but it's not actually a consideration. No Republican is like, yes, it is difficult, and though it might mean the end of my career, I must take a stand here at last against Donald Trump and his treachery. Oh, me get tired, me quit. That's not what is gonna happen. It is an interesting, we could do hypotheticals on what might matter. Someone in the chat was like, he could stand up and say, yeah, I sent them to kill Pelosi. What are you gonna do about it? And they'd still acquit him. I don't know. I don't know about that. Maybe there's something he could say that would be a bridge too far, but how many open minds could there possibly be? I doubt 17. That's what I doubt.
And it's looking like he's actually going to testify. He's going to be in his own hearing, obviously.
Well, as of Friday, I had seen that his lawyers didn't want that. Anything could change. It's still possible. I'm sure the Dems would like it. I think. Look, there's a lot of considerations on that. I mean, one, that would be really entertaining, I'm sure.
I know.
And it really does bother me that he's never had to answer in any of these trials, or he didn't have to do like a big sit down with Mueller. Like we had the multi-year long investigation and he was able to submit some written answers. That's it. Why doesn't he ever have to defend himself? This strong alpha man, the ultimate Eagle Patriot missile man. He just hides behind like, oh, I'll be over here with my lawyers. Because everybody knows that I'm such either a dunce or a liar that I would make things worse for me. So, and they're saying he tried to overthrow the government. That's what they're saying. So how could he not have to actually speak to that? How could it just be a thing where like, we'll debate it. You just go over there. You do whatever you want and we'll debate whether maybe you don't get to run again. I don't know. The whole thing, if you don't have him in, and I get that they can't apparently force it, it makes it seem less serious to me.
Yeah, oh, for sure. But there's nothing as unserious as Donald Trump trying to answer a question. So I don't know about that, but it would be fun to see him fire both of his lawyers live on television in the middle of the hearing as they're like, as they try to like calm him, like it's very like Giuliani to Melissa, what was her name? Calzone is what I'm gonna call her.
Calzone. Calzone,
and I can.
I don't know. You can. We both can. We have Italian privilege, so there you go.
It's Calzone. Oh, Carone. Now I'm remembering it.
I like calzone better. Let's do that.
I like calzone as well. Now I'm hungry. Damn it, John.
Good place for calzones in Culver City. Anyway, yes. Look, it's ridiculous. Their whole defense is going to be that the Senate lacks jurisdiction to judge a former president after he left office because the Constitution doesn't explicitly say that it can, even though many of the people making that argument have supported hypothetically impeaching Democratic presidents afterward and have been perfectly fine with the same sort of procedure for non-president government officials. If you're like, I understand that it's a different level, but if you're saying that the lack of explicit authorization in the Constitution is enough for us to shut this down without even having a trial, then I think that that's an important bit of precedent that should definitely be considered.
Yeah. I want to just mention one other thing, which is about the lack of witnesses, which it's a terrible idea. Like, I don't think that, unless they're gonna like bring up AOC's Instagram lives, which are incredibly damning and very good evidence. Like why? Why not have witnesses? Why not have your fellow colleagues explain how they felt and how they were targeted and because again, we know that not every senator or congressperson felt like they were in the crosshairs. Unless your name was Mike Pence or Nancy Pelosi, Schumer or AOC or Ilhan, like we know who the targets were, right?
Yeah.
We know who would skirt underneath that. And the other thing I will say is that you gotta have Capitol Police and Capitol staff members who had to clean up, in some cases, feces and blood from the Capitol floors, from people's offices. These are people who day in and day out keep keep the halls clean, keep people safe, right? Like, why not hear from them? I think it would. I think it makes total sense. And today also is the first death of a sitting U.S. Congressperson of COVID. And we know that after the insurrection, there were people who tested positive for COVID. Now, I'm not linking his death to, the possible outbreak of COVID, but we know that like not only did the insurrectionists try to like overturn a democratic election, but also like spread a virus. But hey, what else is new for, the MAGA crowd?
Yeah, we mentioned that death on the pre-show. In terms of the timeline, he announced it on the 21st. Who knows? I mean, we have no idea. It's a tragedy, regardless. And yet another sort of lethal threat that's being ignored by much of our government. Well, let's turn to a slightly different angle on this. What do the American people think about this Senate trial? Well, from the point of view of the Senate, nobody seems to care. But I think it's interesting to find out what the people actually want. There's a new poll, ABC News, Ipsos, being described in all the headlines as a slim majority. I don't know, it's 56% of Americans back the conviction of Trump and barring him from running again. I guess 56 is a slim majority. It's America. 40% think anything. Like you can find 40% of America that thinks literally anything you can come up with. So there's only ever 10% we're warring over. I feel like 6% is a pretty good chunk of that. But anyway, 56% are in favor of that. 9 in 10 Democrats back conviction and a ban. 8 in 10 Republicans oppose both. So, hey, there's a little bit of bipartisanship. Some Republicans are in favor of that. And look, that's obviously like still a lot of support for Donald Trump, which is disconcerting. But 1 to 2 in 10 Republicans supporting it is millions of Republicans, many of whom will have already voted for Donald Trump in that last election, possibly voted twice. They might own a red hat, and they do now think, yeah, conviction and a ban's not necessarily the worst idea. Some of those might be never Trump Republicans who are just sort of biding their time, but there are some Republicans, I think, a few who were convinced by what happened on the 6th and the defense of it afterward.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm tired of catering to, trying to like morality whisper to the final MAGA holdouts. I can't.
I know.
We can't keep like, gauging our politics and our strategy based on who's gonna have a change of heart at 4 a.m. And they're like, hey, maybe overthrowing the government's a bad idea. No. At a certain point, I think we're far beyond the is this divisive moment. No, this is about what's right and wrong. This is about laying down a precedent. And this is about like making good on our constitutional amendment that says you should not give aid or comfort. There's a lot of comfort going on, let me tell you, between Trump and many Republicans and those who planned the insurrection. So hey, let's look at the old Constitution.
So are you implying that saying, I love you, you're very special could be comfort? I've always found it to be comforting. My wife rarely is as complimentary towards me as he was towards the people that had already killed cops. But anyway, totally joking. She's the best. I love you. Thanks for watching. If you're watching, she's probably not watching. But if she is, love you. Thank you. Anyway, so let's see. The issue is that while 56% support it, you need 2/3 in the Senate. So that means you need all of the Democrats, which probably you could get all the Democrats, maybe. But you also need 17 Republicans, which is like you couldn't get 17 Republicans to join Democrats in like establishing nationwide factories to pump out Confederate statues. Like they would not be that bipartisan on anything. But suppose maybe we'll be surprised. I don't know. What are you willing to bet any money on 17 Republicans crossing over? I mean, they killed people, Francesca. It was serious.
No. Who would make that bet? No, not after the election pool bet. When I was like, we're gonna sweep both houses. Shoo in. Here you go.
It was not great. I mean, look, we got the Senate though. Yay. Anyway, here's an interesting little tidbit from this poll. This isn't really directly related, but According to the poll, 42% of respondents said there were more radical extremists in the Republican Party compared with 32% who had said the same of the Democratic Party. Which, like, okay, so I get it. That's the hardcore Republicans are obviously gonna say the Democrats are crazier, but like, you guys believe in satanic sacrifices and stuff. Come on, man, we don't have anything like that. I don't know what that would look like on the left, what a version of that would be. I mean, I know that there are like, media personalities who believe some insane things, but there's no representatives anymore who believe such crazy things. It's just that sort of thing. I understand this is all opinion and people exist in their partisan bubbles. We're a tribal species and all of that, but that seems like that's a bridge too far. It should be a mental bridge too far for anyone, but anyway.
I just want to say, like, obviously 17 Republicans should, not even on moral grounds, because once again, beyond like whispering to their very, very underused moral muscle in the old heart, it's here in the soul piece. But 17 Republicans should vote to convict because why not? Here's the thing, they're calculating, oh no, we want the MAGA vote. Problem with the MAGA vote is it has nothing to do with you. It's not about you, it's about Trump. So if you want to get reelected, then you're just gonna have to keep supporting Trump in whatever he does. And if that means that another insurrection, let's just play this all forward, reelected, another couple more impeachments, 5, I'm gonna say, another insurrection, and then it's hang, insert your name. Like, that's all it leads to. It leads to step out of line and it's hang, insert your own name. So what is the incentive knowing that MAGA is so tied up with the Trump family? Not even, maybe Ivanka a little bit, but he would absolutely like push, like throw her off of a cliff, whatever he have to do, under a bus, over a train, all the things that you can stab someone in the back, if it meant that he could get ahead. So again, the calculation's ridiculous. Like, where do you want your party to actually go when we're watching it kind of disintegrate? I know there's people who are like, no, this is the future. It is Q. I don't know. I don't know.
I think it's what is it likely to be and what might actually work are obviously very different things. But to your point about what that vote actually represents, where it turns out, like, I get that. I'm gonna try to say something that pragmatically could be incorporated by a Republican to try to change their party in a way that might make them more likely to win. But that's not gonna work because they refuse to accept what has happened with the elections. And you're not gonna be able to learn anything if you refuse to accept what actually happened. But since Donald Trump got elected, they lost the House, they lost the presidency, they lost the Senate in Georgia. Maybe his movement ain't that great. Like, maybe it's not the best. Yes, they got some judges because of the way the Senate's set up and extra power to the rural states and all of that. But in terms of actual elections, they're not doing good and they haven't for years. I don't know, doubling down on that and going in the more satanic direction doesn't seem like the best idea. What do I know? Anyway, let's read some comments from the audience. Then we're gonna move on to some other news. First out the gates is from Gabby saying South Africa stopped AstraZeneca because useless for mutant. Yes, actually, we're gonna be talking about a little bit on the pandemic in just a little bit, but thank you for that. Sinful Solution says, yay for Francesca, nice. Sailor says, I'm tier 2, but I can't figure out how to get to the exclusive videos in the app. Also, much love to John and Francesca. Well, if you go to the playlist, there should be a playlist for the top 10 list and a playlist for the Q&A, and hopefully all the videos should be visible there. Forrest Dudley says, I think Mike Lindell's speech patterns are starting to mimic Trump. Also, love Fantastic Mondays. My second favorite person on TDR after John. Sorry, Francesca, deal with it. Also, I'm formally announcing my claim of Shenron Dragon. It's yours, thank you. Luck Dragon says, hey John, I didn't realize we shared a birthday. Hope your weekend was great. Let's make this year before I turn 40 a much better one than last year. Already better with Tangerine Hemorrhoid out of office. And no, that's not what they called him on her show. It was worse than that maybe, but anyway. Okay, Leslie Ann, thank you for becoming a tier 2 member on YouTube. Really do appreciate that. Thomas, welcome to tier 1 as well. Over on Twitch, Obi Mom Kenobi gifted 5 tier 1 subs. As always, Obi, thank you. And thank you for watching. K-Chan subscribed for the 7th month. It says happy B-Day, Franny, John, all the staff, everyone in chat. Everyone was born today, but not yesterday. Bama Raider subscribed for the 3rd month. Thank you. USC Raider Dynasty for the 4th month. Says love TDR. Can I be always hungry, Dragon? Been following for 6 months. You can. Thank you. We're hungry too. That's why we're talking about calzones on the show. Elmo says subscribe for the 4th month. It says cute haircut, Franny.
Thanks.
Nice.
Don't tell anyone I got it. Oh, whoops.
Pandecember, she used her special powers to have one of those stores open up. Pandecember says, I saved my resubs for when TDR is on air. Favorite show on the whole TYT channel. John and friends make my day. Love hearing news from a fellow board game nerd. Oh, thank you. By the way, that reminds me to Tom, who might be watching. I got the game that you sent. Thank you so much. Can't wait to play it. My wife and I are excited to try out some of these new games in the new year. And with that, wait. Alien Sock Puppet in the Twitch chat says, Lou Dobbs, show us your undies.
No. That dies with the tangerine hemorrhoid, which.
Oh. This is a news show, ma'am. Anyway, with that, let's jump into some news that is dark, but brighter than what we've been discussing up to this point. We've given Joe Biden a little bit of credit for what he's pushed for in this COVID relief bill, but it ain't passed yet. And suddenly it's starting to look even worse than it did last week. Here he is on the inclusion of the hike to a $15 an hour minimum wage.
You also want to raise the minimum wage to $15. Is that something you would be willing to negotiate on in order to get Republican support?
Well, apparently that's not going to occur because of the rules of the United States Senate.
So you're saying the minimum wage won't be in this?
My guess is it will not be in it, but I do think that we should have a minimum wage stand by itself, $15 an hour, and work your way up to the 15. It doesn't have to be boom. And all the economics show if you do that, the whole economy rises. I'm prepared as President of the United States on a separate negotiation on minimum wage to work my way up from what it is now, which is pain. Look, no one should work 40 hours a week and live below the poverty wage. And if you're making less than $15 an hour, you're living below the poverty wage.
But that may not be in your American Rescue Plan.
No, I put it in, but I don't think it's going to survive.
Okay, so after that interview, which was Biden's first sort of sit-down television interview, senior advisor to the president, Cedric Richmond, said Biden's comment on the increase not surviving, quote, was merely his prediction of what he thought the Senate would do, adding, Bernie Sanders has assembled the team to make a very compelling argument that it should stay in the bill. We're gonna go to Bernie in a sec, but Francesca, what do you think about this seeming preemptive retreat by Biden on the hike of the minimum wage?
It's interesting because in that clip you see two different Bidens, which is like the one sort of like, we can work our way up to it, and it's not gonna happen overnight. And it's kind of the politician's line that like whenever you're asked a question, you always sort of retreat from the like principle of what you stand for. And then he just goes into like, wait a minute, no one working 40 hours a week should live below the poverty line. Yeah, wait a minute, that's what I believe. And it's like, and that's a little bit more like the grandpa Biden, the Biden who's like, peace, I'm out, like I'm gonna just walk away. I wanna like be the FDR. Like I'm not trying to give him that much credit. I'm just trying to like see the moments where he actually just says what he believes. And then it's like, yeah, man, just say that. Just say people deserve $15 an hour now because they are living below the poverty line while working 40 hours a week. And $15 an hour really in a lot of places isn't even enough. So like, why not just stand by that? But then he hedges immediately, but I don't think it's gonna pass. Who cares? You don't even need to say that. Just say, this is what I believe, this is what I want to get done. End of story.
Yeah, and look, in terms of saying it now when we're not there yet, I maybe there's like a strategic element of, well, it's really looking like it's not gonna be possible, so I better start to make sure that people don't expect it, because if they go on expecting it for longer, then it doesn't happen, then they're gonna have a really negative response. Maybe, I mean, maybe think about that before you decide to include it in the first place. But I would also say since we don't know yet and it's still possible, maybe put some pressure, try to make it happen. Yeah. And it looks like it is possible. So we're gonna go to Bernie Sanders. Here he is talking about his continuing efforts behind the scenes to make sure that it is included and that it does pass.
We've got to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour. And I can tell you, as chairman of the Budget Committee, we have a room full of lawyers working as hard as we can to make the case to the parliamentarian that, in fact, raising the minimum wage will have significant budget implications and, in fact, should be consistent with reconciliation rules.
During the campaign, you were running for president, and you said whoever you picked as VP would overrule the parliamentarian in order to pass legislation such as Medicare for All with just 51 votes. Should Vice President Harris do that, overrule the parliamentarian to keep the minimum wage increase in this bill?
Well, before we get to what the vice president is going to do, I got to get through the parliamentarian, and then I got to get 50 votes in support of raising that minimum wage to $15.
Okay, so we got two bits there, Francesca. First of all, he has this team of lawyers, which instantly, for some reason, makes me think of the Binders Full of Women, except that this one isn't misogynistic. But anyway, he's got people that are still working on it, so we don't know yet. So I would say project strength leading up to that. But then he didn't answer the question about whether Harris should overrule the parliamentarian. What did you think about that?
Well, I mean, then he answers it honestly, which, I mean, Jake Tapper's assuming that there's 50 votes on the Democratic side, and the truth is there's not. The sad truth is they still have to whip those votes and make sure that all Democrats are on the side of a $15 minimum wage, which seems like such a no-brainer for us progressives and people, on the left, but like, actually, there's the, Mansions and Kristen Cinemas and Hickenloopers and other folks who were like duped by, Joni Ernst in one of the first rounds of negotiations around the $1.9 trillion stimulus that where they were like, yeah, no, we shouldn't have it, and because they're worried about, I don't know what, small businesses that we keep touting out. So I think it's a little bit preemptive. I personally think if the votes are there, then yeah, Kamala should step in, but I don't know if they're there.
Yeah, and like it's depressing that you can get to the point where Joe Biden now talks about like the fact that so many people are effectively living beneath, I think he means the poverty line, but he keeps saying the poverty wage. But anyway, he now accepts it. He's talking as if he's Bernie Sanders, even though, I don't think you have to go back that many years before he wouldn't have supported this either. But you still have people like Manchin who are like, no, if it's 11 here in West Virginia, that's the highest it should be anywhere. Because I have to imagine no place is more expensive to live in than West Virginia. It's an insane position to hold. God, Joe Manchin. Anyway, but I guess in this, I want to ask the question, is he going to be the one Democrat to end the doubling of the minimum wage nationally? And yeah, he probably would be okay with it, even though it would be devastating economically, the moral cost of the damage to so many families, including in his own state. But then also strategically for the Democrats, not delivering on that after making it a big issue is going to be devastating too. He seems perfectly willing to be the Democrat that ensures that. I also want to just quickly say, if you rewatch the first part where Bernie is talking about the minimum wage and how it needs to be raised and all of that, I get that he does a lot of interviews and maybe he's just tired or whatever. I was yawning during the pre-show because the coffee had kicked in. Jake Tapper looked so bored listening to Bernie talk about how the minimum wage needs to be raised and how people are suffering. He looked like he didn't give a damn about any of this. And I get part of it is probably because I assume he really despises Bernie Sanders. Maybe it's less the topic and more the man delivering the message. Look at him.
I think he's listening.
It's like if somebody was it's like if somebody was trying to talk to me about the Super Bowl right now. Be like, are you gonna stop talking?
He's got resting elitist face though. Like he can't help it, He just has a little
Anyway. But we do have a little bit on Joe Manchin, something I was alluding to earlier. So here's that next bit.
Even if it makes it into the bill, you're going to need every Democrat on board. And West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin says he does not support increasing the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. He has suggested he could get behind a lower amount, such as $11 an hour, which I think is what the rate is in West Virginia. Would you be willing to compromise in order to get Manchin's vote?
Now, I strongly look, a $15 an hour minimum wage is not a radical idea. Making $600 a week in the United States of America, barely, given the high cost of rent and all the other living expenses that people have to pay, that's not a lot of money. So these are debates that we're going to have within the Democratic caucus. But I hope and believe that at the end of the day, the members of the Democratic caucus understand that we do need to pass a $15 an hour minimum.
It's just, I get that this is sort of how it works, but like the idea that like Joe Manchin gets to decide if millions of minimum wage workers around the country get $4 extra an hour or not.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, and
it's
this
sad
is
that like most of them wouldn't even end up knowing that it was him that might cause that. Like every day they work, they are noticeably taking home less money, potentially specifically because Joe Manchin doesn't give a damn.
I mean, look, I mean, can we go to the other side? Is there a Republican who believes that we should raise the minimum wage? I mean, I believe in working. I think bipartisanship is important when it comes to like bread and butter issues like this. But then you see the ways that the negotiations and all the amendments that Republicans in the Senate introduced to try and scale back any way they could this $1.9 trillion, and the fact that they are, and it's like, if we could just run ads over and over and over again in these red states about these senators and how they tried to cut into the deserved support for the American people at a time of an international pandemic, massive unemployment, healthcare crisis. Like, just come on. I don't know. I don't know what will work. But yeah, I mean, it is ridiculous that it would come down just to one guy. And I think West Virginians, they've been trying. They really have been mounting a good amount of resistance. I know there's a lot of progressives and Democrats who are really trying to change that state. So
yeah, imagine if everything else was the same, but it was Paula Jean Swearengin instead. The conversation we'd be having about minimum wage. All these elections matter. Let's move on to a related topic. We still don't know exactly what the cutoff points for the stimulus checks are going to be. That's another area where now that we've moved into using reconciliation, this is purely the Democrats negotiating with themselves. But here is Bernie Sanders, who was on with Jake Tapper, talking about this debate they're having about where exactly the line should be drawn.
Where do you think the cutoff should be?
Well, I think what we have done in the past and what we have promised the American people, we've said two things in the last month. We said we're going to get you $2,000, and that's $600 plus $1,400. And what we're going to do is say that everybody, a single person, individual, $75,000 or lower, and a couple of $150,000 or lower will be eligible for that full $2,000, $600 plus $1,400. Now, when people said we don't want rich people to get that benefit, I understand that, I agree. And what we need to do is have a strong cliff so it doesn't kind of spill over to people making $300,000. And that's what I support, and that's what I think most people understand. But to say to a worker in Vermont or California or any place else that if you're making $52,000 a year, you are too rich to get this help, the full benefit, I think that that's absurd. And it's also, from a political point of view, a little bit absurd that you would have under Trump these folks getting the benefit, but under Biden, who is fighting hard for the working class of this country, they would not get that full benefit.
Yeah, imagine setting up a situation where people had done better in regard to stimulus under Trump than the new administration, which wants to say that they're the ones who actually care. It's a really weird situation. I mean, let alone, the fundamental issue where you are evaluating people's access to this money based on a financial situation that is like a year and a half old at this point and is not necessarily, for millions of Americans, at all representative of what they've experienced over the past year. Fundamentally flawed, and it's a terrible strategic as well as economic path to go down.
Yeah, I mean, but we love, especially in the media, I mean, like, it's always just haggling over like, but do rich people deserve the, like, why don't you just talk about the the millions of people that have fallen into poverty since this pandemic began? Like, why don't you like bring a dose of what you do, which is, actual journalism and reporting. That's you guys. Bring that into the conversation, and then we'll see that, yeah, $50,000 a year ain't that much. Let's just throw in a cost of living stat. Hey, Jake, you know what I mean? Like, so that of course never enters. I just want to make another point. I am fascinated and tickled and so happy to see Bernie Sanders like on the front lines, working on the progressive side of the Biden administration as the chairman of the Office of Budget, or the Budget of Office, or whatever the hell, budget chairman. The point is, it's crazy. Because first of all, he's a way better mouthpiece than Biden is himself. Obviously, he's lucid and cogent, and like really, he has morals that he knows exactly what he wants to say. And I just want to hats off to all of the people, the Bernie movement, and a lot of the organizers that actually made for this moment and made sure that they were at the table. Obviously we have to see what is delivered, and obviously we have to see how this goes. But it is just really heartening to feel like, first of all, the guy was serious when he said "not me, us." Number one.
Yeah.
Look at him, he's fighting this fight, and it is thanks to a lot of grassroots pressure, and it shows that maybe, that Biden knows that it was progressives and grassroots organizers that really delivered him this win. But just a side note, it's really nice to see Bernie in this role.
Yeah, no, exactly. Although, he does say the 1,400 and 600 thing for the 2,000. That just because obviously the sort of trust and affection I have for Bernie in comparison to other politicians, it makes me sort of think, well, if Bernie's convinced that they were saying that's what they were saying, maybe, but no, we've gone over all the evidence. They were saying $2,000. But anyway, that's the criticism. Other than that, it was a great appearance. It clearly really bothered Jake Tapper, but I'm glad that he's out there doing it, as he said. Now that said, let's move directly into other news. I don't think we have it. Okay, that's fine. But I know that as soon as I say something, it's gonna come up. Okay, so a little bit of good news, bad news on the pandemic. Most of it bad because it's the pandemic. In addition to this morning, the first US representative passing away as a result of it, we do have some good news. And that is that the number of new daily coronavirus cases has dropped below 100,000 for the first time this year, according to data from Johns Hopkins. Just under 87,000 cases were recorded in the US on February 7th. The last time we recorded less than 100,000 was November 2nd, before the election. So look, 87,000 cases is still so much, but we've had a lot more than that recently. I still remember we were at 40,000, but it is starting to go down. Deaths are also down. 1,301 deaths were recorded on Sunday compared to 4,101 on previous Sundays. So those numbers are going down. They're still very high in comparison to sort of the middle months of the pandemic, but that's a little bit of good news, Francesca.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's hard. The bleakest moment for now has passed. The real question is, can we remember that it's still dark in order to prevent another bleak and even bleaker moment? Because once again, the vaccine is rolling out, but these are our uncles, man. I lost my uncle to COVID. These are our families. These are our friends. These are our communities. Okay, these are people who are gonna be, so every life is really important right now. So I know it's hard to hold on, but put your stupid mask over your stupid face, and try not to get your droplets everywhere, and limit the time that you're in stores and restaurants and grocery stores or whatever.
Totally. Yeah, and I know. So I see some people in the chat are like, "Well, but Sundays are always the lowest days." No, I get that, but that's why we're not comparing Sundays to last Friday. We're comparing Sundays to the previous Sundays. So it is actually trending down. We'll see. I didn't watch the Super Bowl, but I did see the crowds, the gigantic maskless Tampa Bay crowds. So that's not good. And
a lot of them were cardboard cutouts. It was an actual false flag Super Bowl. It was a.
Some of the flags were cardboard too. They were false.
The flags were false flags all over. But no, really, they were like cardboard cutters. The people were still way too close together.
I'm not talking about in the stadium. I'm talking about the parties like out on the streets and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And they were happening in Florida, which is one of the places that one of the cool new mutant strains of the coronavirus is starting to spread. So here is the bad news. The more transmissible COVID-19 variant that originated in the UK is doubling here in the US every 10 days. This new study, which has not yet been peer reviewed, also found the variant to be up to 35 to 45% more transmissible than the COVID-19 strain that was first circulating in the US. And we have a statement from the authors saying, unless decisive and immediate public health action is taken, the increased transmission rate of these lineages and resultant higher effective reproduction number of SARS-CoV-2 will likely have devastating consequences to COVID-19 mortality and morbidity in the US in a few months. Decisive action is not immediately taken. And gathering in gigantic crowds for a fun, sporty event is not the sort of decisive action they're looking for. Now, before we chime in, based on the sample of positive tests sequenced in the study, the variant from the UK was detected in the US multiple times way back in November 2020, with 2 prominent groups detected in Florida and California. Cases in other states, including North Carolina, Georgia, and Texas, led researchers to believe that B117 has likely been spreading throughout the country since late 2020. And most importantly of all, studies are still being conducted on how B117 may impact the effectiveness of the 2 vaccines currently authorized in the US from Moderna and Pfizer. Another variant from South Africa called B1351, recently found in South Carolina, does appear to reduce vaccine efficacy, perhaps significantly. Not only not protecting you necessarily from the worst effects of COVID, but also producing more mild and moderate cases, which the current vaccines for the original strain have been pretty good at limiting that. So a lot of bad news having to do with those mutant strains.
Yeah. The bottom line, when you take a look at the United States' strategy thus far, and even going forward, is that we are not serious about stopping COVID. We're just not. And we won't be so long as we're prioritizing making money over human lives. And so long as we are unable to pass something like a $1.9 trillion stimulus and bailout for the industries and the people who are dying and hurting the most. We in this country are obsessed with what we think is personal freedom. And at this point, that is the freedom to spread a virus and to die because of a virus. But hey, you were able to go to a Super Bowl party and man, go out like that, I guess. That's not the country I want to live in. I mean, honestly, you look at many other countries that have actually successfully, with far fewer resources than the United States has, that have successfully been able to contain the virus. And it has to do with a lot of like government oversight. It has to do with actually having a government that works. Part of that is limiting travel. We have 50 states, we have huge amounts of internal travel. I know people who have been traveling during this time. I'm not saying that they shouldn't travel, but hey, would it prevent the spread of these mutant viruses? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it would.
Especially internationally.
Internationally, for sure, but even internally, if it meant that if we could contain the mutant strains to Florida and California, maybe that would be good. Maybe that would be good. But if we throw up our hands and say, no, well, you can't stop travel because that's our freedom. I don't know. Like, what are you gonna go stay indoors in the next state over? Like, I really want us to really consider like how unserious we are about stopping this virus, and yet how all of the answers are literally in our faces. They've been in our faces since the beginning of this.
Yeah, some of them have supposed to have been on our faces and we have rejected it.
Yes.
There was a politician, I forget the name, who was wearing a mask that said something like, I'm only wearing this because I have to or something. And it was a black mask with white text. And that mask was clearly in the photo over one of the KN95 masks. So like they were like, I'm only wearing this because I have to. But secretly I also have the medical one under it because I don't want to get COVID, but I also really want to grift. So that's cool. Anyway, a little bit more good news. So if you are out there and you're curious about when you, assuming you live in the US, might have access to the vaccine, we've got some good news for you. But the good news comes with what's the opposite of a silver lining? There's some bad news too. Take a look at this.
Your op-ed today in the Wall Street Journal, I like, because it puts forth this tantalizing idea that soon we're going to go from the current problem we have, where it's a whole problem of supply, too much demand, not enough supply. We'll have the reverse of that at some point, where we have lots of vaccines and not enough people who want to take them. How quickly can we get to that point?
Yeah, I think it's going to happen all at once. I mean, this isn't going to be a gradual transition, and I think people are going to be surprised that it's going to happen sooner than we think. So if you look at the math, we're going to put about 220 million doses into the market by the end of March. And if J&J gets authorized, which I think they will, that'll be another 30, maybe 40 million doses. So figure 250 million doses by the end of March. And if a 60-40 split occurs, meaning 60% are first injections, 40% are second injections, which is probably about right, that's around 150 million people that will vaccinate between December and the end of March. I think that's going to work off a lot of the available demand. Then we're going to be putting another 100 million doses into the market in April. So I think once you're getting to those kinds of numbers, once you're looking at over, close to 200 million vaccines available for first injections, I think we're going to run out of demand. I think we're going to run out of demand sooner than we think. And I suspect that at some point in March, and certainly by the end of March, we're going to have to make this generally available. That doesn't mean everyone could go and get a vaccine on April 1st, but I think everyone's going to be able to go online and get an appointment sooner than we think. We'll still be rationing it through February, but at some point in March, states are going to have to make decisions about how to open this up more widely. And if we continue to ration it based on, more and more narrow slices of the population, it's going to get harder to administer. So I think we're just going to have to open this up to general availability, which is good news. I think certainly by April, this is going to be widely available.
They used the term good news several times there. And look, if you want to get the vaccine, the idea that demand is going to run out, so you'll be able to get it, within a month and a half, maybe, that is good news. But if that's only possible because there's not enough people who want to get it, and they're just going to stay out there getting the disease, passing the disease, dying from the disease, passing the new variants of the disease, that's not like pure good news there. That's a nice side effect for some people as a result of the continued willful suffering of more people.
That whole clip threw me for one, because he's next to, if I'm not wrong, stock market value. So he's coming at this from a really cold-hearted, you better sell off your Pfizer shares there because they're gonna be running out. He's coming at it from a financial analyst perspective about how soon more people are gonna be vaccinated and what will that mean for all the shares that you bought in Moderna. It's a little bit gross, and or a lot of it gross. And so he then says at the very end, okay, that's good. Which it is good, but are they actually rationing it? Because you shouldn't be rationing it.
Well, they're rationing it now. In most states, you have to be above a certain age. A healthcare worker that's the rationing they mean.
But
right
not
now,
because, but only because there is a lack. The production can't keep up with the administration. Right? Please tell me it's only because of that.
Yeah, and he could be wrong. Look, he might be wrong. It might be that they're sort of projecting what the demand will be, and they're doing this in part on some of the countries that have been more successful with vaccinating. So Israel is vaccinated a far higher percent. They're seeing a lowering of demand based on what I've read. But it's also possible that American views of vaccines are pretty distinct from most other countries, and that some people might be worried about it. But if we go a couple more months and there's not widespread evidence of really bad negative reactions, if some of the mutant strains don't just overwhelm the vaccine, then maybe the demand will go up after that. So this is his prediction. It is interesting, I think worthy of discussion, but we don't know for sure that this is how it's gonna go.
Sure. No, and obviously, I'm not gonna talk about a national health care program because clearly we don't have that, but that would be one way to make sure people are vaccinated. Hey, free doctor's visit, free COVID vaccine. But for sure, in lieu of that, partnerships with, pharmacies, Walgreens and Rite Aid, getting your COVID vaccine there. That is what we wanna see. That is an affordable and or free vaccine. It should be free. It's free now. Let's hope it continues to be free. And also, like we've talked about on this show, the amount of countries that are not seeing the vaccine, and now we're talking about a glut. Like, I don't know. I'm just like, what do we? If we don't want it, then give it to another country.
Well, presumably that will happen. Maybe not immediately, but yeah, like I imagine some of these countries in India, like hearing like, oh, that we're just going to be sitting on 100 million doses that nobody wants is disgusting on top of disgusting. But anyway, see what happens. Okay, no, that said, let's read just a couple of comments. We'll move on to our final stories. Let's see. Nancy Smith says, hi, John and Franny, love you both. Thank you for that. N136 says, aid and comfort like providing organic food and allowing insurrectionists to go to Mexico on a retreat. Yeah, I'm honestly fine with the organic food. The retreat to Mexico, that seemed weird. They didn't actually let her go, if I remember correctly. Like she wanted it, but they didn't actually let her do it. Anyway, Paolo says, I missed live shows last week. You broke my heart. How do you not Dune? You need to watch Jodorowsky's Dune doc. Can I be Dragon Idaho? Oh, hi, Franny or Francesca, please. But anyway, I just haven't watched Dune. Although oddly enough, my wife did give me this new Dune board game. So I'm gonna learn a little bit about Dune. I just haven't seen the movies. Patrick Decker, thank you for becoming a tier 3 YouTube member. Within the next week and a half or so, we're gonna do our second monthly Q&A. So look forward to that. Ninja Joe says, Franny has the best voice in the biz. That's pretty cool.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean,
it's no longer the best. Let's see.
What about when I do my Mickey Mouse? What about Zuckerberg?
Zuckerberg's one of your best.
He's got the
Bretta's
best
pretty good too. Chuck Stover, welcome to tier 2 YouTube membership. Aaron P says, brand new Fran Stan here. Really enjoyed hearing my name read by your sweet voice yesterday, Franny. P.S. Happy belated B-Day. John, you share my sister's B-Day. And Franny, you share your B-Day with my brother. Who there shares my B-Day? We'll talk to JR, maybe. Jeff Stewart, welcome to tier 2 membership. Inca says, hey, Francesca, gonna watch from the start, but nice to catch you live. And happy birthday to John's wife in advance. That's nice. That's very nice. Old Dirty Dragon. That's a great name. That's really good. Why did nobody have that already? Old Dirty Dragon. Anyway, your pre-show recount of your birthday was priceless. Well, worth $20 at least. I would pay more to see Tucker Carlson start a show tonight the same way. By the way, can I claim Old Dirty Dragon? Well, yeah, I mean, you have all the support in the world. Yeah, on the pre-show, I mentioned that I got pretty high for my birthday, so I couldn't remember what movie we watched. But before the show, I mentioned to Francesca, it was You've Got Mail, which I'd never seen before and thought was perfectly fine and nice.
Very forgettable though, and not a bad movie to watch high.
Yeah, sure. I zoned out for a few minutes there. And then like I came back and there was a lot of like weird gaslighting that like they didn't have a problem with, and she was totally cool with, which seemed weird to me, but I really like Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan's awesome. It's no When Harry Met Sally, I will say that, but it's fine. It's fine.
Very dated.
I really like Tom Hanks.
Gaslighting wasn't a thing.
I know, it's like she's just totally cool. I was hoping you were lying to me. Really? Anyway, okay, now over on Twitch. Alien Sock Puppet says, I want to see Dune in IMAX this fall. Let's fix this crap. Yeah, I want to see Black Widow. I want to see Bond. I want to go to a movie theater and eat way too much popcorn and then get sick. That's what I want. So can we please put our masks on so that I can do that? Anyway, Mickey Sawicki says, I started watching when COVID first hit. I'm one of those subscribers that only know the Damage Report and TYT Quarantine Edition. The message is still the same, and I've never known another news source to tell the truth so consistently. Love you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Queen Bree says, love TDR Dragon Squad, has made me feel so much better during the pandemic. Mad love. Very nice of you. Kiara's, it's both their subiversary and their birthday. Happy birthday, Kiara. Okay, Stephmont says, OMG, I went to the store this weekend and saw someone who not only had his mask under his nose, but he had a mouth hole. Like, what? Why in the hell is the point of wearing a mask? Who makes masks with mouth holes? That's just called your face. That's what your face is. It's a flesh mask with a mouth hole. Anyway, okay. Now, that said, we got a couple of quick stories to get through, and then we're gonna do our top 10 list, so let's launch back into this. The best that Kevin McCarthy was willing to do with Representative Marjorie Greene, who used to be on committees but isn't anymore, that's awesome, was to have a little talk with her and supposedly ask her to apologize after all that she did. And it turns out that is exactly his approach to Liz Cheney, who doesn't believe any of the Q stuff, but she just voted for Trump to be impeached. This is according to Axios, who says Kevin McCarthy tried to get Liz Cheney to apologize for how she handled her vote to impeach former President Trump before last week's highly anticipated House GOP conference meeting, a request she refused, apparently. McCarthy, who hesitated in the first place about holding a vote to oust Cheney, told her privately hours before the caucus meeting that their members wanted to hear she was sorry. He also suggested it could sway some of her opponents. Cheney's team, though, did a whip count, and she was confident she'd secure at least 142 votes, which she did. I just love the idea that they just want to hear that you're sorry for the thing you did. How juvenile of a way to approach this. But this is all Kevin McCarthy's got, is private behind the scenes conversations asking, please just make this go away. I don't want to have to exercise any sort of actual leadership or like choice or anything. Just say you're sorry and let this go on. Let us move on from this. It's sort of sad.
Wait a minute. To kick her out of which caucus? Of the Freedom Caucus? Or
no, they were going to kick her out of leadership.
Just leadership generally?
Yeah. Of this and Girl Scouts.
How does it smell?
No,
I just want to know, how does it smell?
I don't want you to.
How does it smell to be that far up Donald Trump's crack?
No.
Seriously.
It was
seriously. And how do you get farther? How do you actually wedge your whole face that far up the former president's crack? Like really though, you're so far up there that do you really, you need to get, you're wedging, you're just wedging.
Francesca, it
and how
depends on the resources you have. There's a very real fear of slipping out. So they have those little spikes that you can hammer in. You're gonna want to tie off every once in a while and use the buddy system. There are buddies in there, and I'm gonna puke. Anyway, yeah, no, it's partly that. He's afraid of it. He's afraid of Trump. He's afraid of Trump fans. He's afraid of Marjorie Greene. He's afraid of QAnon fans. Who is Kevin McCarthy not afraid of right now, honestly?
Yeah, he's afraid of his own shadow. He's afraid of standing up for literally anything. I love when like your so-called leadership has no idea what they're doing. Like these are the limitations of like bipartisanship or getting along or whatever. It's like you're in Washington for so long, your brain just becomes like sort of mushy, go along to get along, and you don't stand for anything anymore. And he doesn't even know what he stands for. And it's a good moment because he doesn't even know what the Republican Party stands for. So it's almost like you don't really blame him because the Republican Party is like, well, we didn't have a plan after Trump. But what we know is that once again, no matter what, no matter how loyal you are, no matter how far you wedge yourself up there, it will always be at some point or another, insert your name, chanted by a mob trying to overturn an election or shouting you down because there's nothing you can do to be loyalist. There's nothing you can do you just can't. You can't. Yeah. So anyway.
You're always just hanging in there. But he'll shake you loose at some point.
You are a dingleberry. All these little dingleberries hanging off of Trump. And they think that they're a real person. They think no, you're a dingleberry. And he can cut you loose whenever he wants.
And then you'll just be stuck on a piece of paper to his shoe. Sometimes I think that participating will make it less bad for me, but it never actually works. Now, Cheney is not backing down on this, saying people have been lied to. President Trump, for months leading up to January 6th, spread the notion that the election had been stolen, and people need to understand that. But bear in mind, the other side isn't really backing down either. The Wyoming Republican Party voted Saturday to censure her over the Trump impeachment vote. And I guarantee everyone, at least 95% of those who voted to censure her, believe that the single greatest threat facing America right now is cancel culture.
Oh yeah.
But they censured her for daring to turn against their god emperor. Anyway, Liz Cheney. I'm perfectly happy to, in the very near future, move on from any defense of Liz Cheney. But in this particular case, the people opposing her are worse.
Agreed.
Now, we are right up against the end of it, and so that's gonna have to be it. I'm gonna read a few comments, but before we do that, Francesca, I wanna give you an opportunity to let people know all the amazing different work that you're involved in.
Oh, you're so sweet. Hey, everyone, listen to the Bitchuation Room podcast, or you can watch it live 6-9 Eastern every Sunday on my YouTube channel, Franny Fio. And also I've got a new episode of Newsbroke with AJ Plus, so check that out again about like whether we need a new war on terror to stop white extremism. I argue no, but so yeah, let me know what you think.
Implying that there are already laws that could be invoked and that we don't need a whole new apparatus?
You just gotta also see white people as possible suspects. It's pretty much, that's my thesis.
I don't think so. I'd prefer new departments. But anyway, and I know that there was a lot of like online like Zoomy comedy shows. Have you been doing any comedy shows recently? Any upcoming that people can participate in?
Stupidly, I did not. This week, I don't think I have any upcoming. Last week I had 2 and I didn't promote them, so I forget sometimes. But follow me on Instagram at Franny Fio and Twitter, and I'll keep everyone abreast.
Awesome. Not engaging. Anyway, okay. No, well, Francesca's gonna be with me in just a sec. After we stop here, we're gonna be filming our top 10. This is the Lou Dobbs top 10 greatest hits as we shove his butt out the door. He lost his job, or at least his show. He's still being paid. Love how the system works. But anyway, on my birthday. So we didn't get a chance to talk about it on Friday's edition. So we're gonna be talking about Lou Dobbs, and we're gonna show you 10 of his greatest hits, lowest moments. I don't know. He says a bunch of stupid stuff. We're gonna make fun of him. So that's coming up soon, available to our YouTube members of tier 2 and tier 3. But before that, I just wanna read a few super chats, including Jason Tastrophe, who says, have you read the Red Rising series? If so, have you heard they are soon coming out with a board game about the series? So I am familiar with the board game that is gonna be coming out. I haven't read the series, although it got a good review from my close friend Quay. Christopher says minimum wage needs to rise, but there needs to be significant support to offset the change for small companies and should vary based on region if they aren't gonna offset costs for small business. Well, I mean, to some extent, I think that is the argument for phasing it in over the course of something like 4 years, is to help them adapt over time. And in terms of the effect on employment, I don't wanna go over all the research and everything, but I believe that a lot of the fears about that cutting millions of jobs is propaganda from, businesses that don't want to pay more, basically. Bernie the Kiwi Bird says, hello to John and my favorite co-host Fran. Can we all just take a moment to appreciate the strange way Manchin's finger looks in the photo? Remind me of the trope of the cigar smoking jerk. I would need to see the B-roll again. I don't know what's, can we bring that up? It's okay, so far no finger, that's good. That's good. His finger is 7 digits long. What is going, oh my God, he's got 2. I don't know what's going on there. That's the weirdest. Okay, well, man, I had never noticed that before. Thank you. Awesome Stuff says some people need to travel for work, and if the government won't pay those people to stay home, then it becomes a matter of survival and putting food on the table, not freedom. Yes, so and we've talked a lot about people having to be put into that terrible position. Obviously, we're talking about willing stuff, going for fun, for parties and stuff like that. Leslie says, sorry tuning in late. How cute is Franny's new hairdo? It's adorable. You might say it's fantastic. Happy Monday. Pepperoni Dragon, hello to you as well. Raleigh says, Fanny said, how did it smell to be that far up is? And John says, depends. I hate all of you. Well, that sucks over on Twitch says, I finally listened to the Bitchuation Room and it's good. I should have got on it sooner. Well, all of you now have an opportunity to not make the same mistake that individual did by going and listening now. Bart says Joe Manchin missed his calling as a bass player because of his fingers. He should have been a musician rather than a politician. I would be perfectly happy with that because I wouldn't have to deal with him in politics and I wouldn't deal with him in music because I wouldn't be listening to it. That'd be a great situation from my point of view. Okay, let's see. Civic Folly says, I have a room full of lawyers. Sometimes we bicker, usually about whether an everything bagel goes better with tuna or chicken salad, but we agree on the $15 wage. I hope that they get it done. Because Biden, like, it's all backpedals and retreats and everything. He's pushing for some good stuff initially, but he needs to actually make good on it. And J&A Moore asks if I read the Sword of Truth series by Terry Goodkind. I tried to read the first one, I wasn't really into it. It's apparently like an epic fantasy series that I know has a lot of fans, but that apparently like really demonizes socialism, which is not what I expect out of my fantasy novels. It's like how capitalism is great and socialism is bad. That's what I've heard anyway. That said, we're gonna go record our Lou Dobbs top 10 list. Thank you everybody for joining us for the show.
Lou Dobbs. What
did I say? Our Lou Dobbs.
It's gonna be Lou.
It's gonna be lewd. And you got that to look forward to soon, as well as an upcoming interview with Abdul El Sayed. We're gonna be talking about Medicare for all. That should be up soon. So with that said, until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.